Regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Greater Boca Raton Beach Park District is now called to order. It is Monday, July 15, 2019. The time is 5:15 p.m. Vicki, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Ernst? Here. Commissioner Engel? Commissioner Lyons?
Here.
Commissioner Holdenside?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Thank you.
We'd like to welcome Vicki and thank her for helping us out while Joanne is on vacation. So welcome, Vicki.
Thank you so much.
Vicki has worked for the city for 31 years and recently retired. Okay, we do have some changes to the agenda. Since Mr. Engel is unable to be here, we are going to table the Sunshine Law presentation to July 25th, as well as the banking RFP. Mr. Horan and Mr. Horowitz are still working on that. Commissioners, are there any other changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Let's go right to public request. If you please step to the microphone, and if you'd like to give your name and address, we would love to hear from you. Hello, Mr. Hurd. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, you have Mr. Hurd's presentation in the packet.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Rick Hurd, live at 285 Northeast Spanish Court in Boca. And just for the record, I'd like to clarify that I have nothing to do professionally or otherwise with Price Fazio. But I'm a fan because I think they do a great job, as do many other architects with golf course work. But last time I spoke, I went over some of the ideas for the East Course, and I also prepared an analysis to help understand the differences between what people have talked about with the Winter Park 9 and with what we have planned, what Price Fazio has planned for Boca National. And I wanted to just go over the numbers in just a little bit of detail to help understand, because I think there's some degree of misunderstanding among people, particularly when you look at the $28 million price tag. So I have been to Winter Park 9, I've played the golf course, I've talked to people, and I have a decent understanding of what they did there. And what they did there was kill the grass, mow it, remove all the grass, move earth around, restored the golf course, did a beautiful job, new greens, new tees, new fairways, some new bunkers, but they didn't relocate things. They didn't relocate trees, they didn't relocate greens or tees or change the routing of the golf course or anything. And it was a fairly small property, about 40 acres compared to 214 acres here. So I think I have to come over here to help people see, but I wanted to go over, if just did an apples to apples comparison. So Winter Park 9 was a $1.2 million project on 40 acres. That's $30,000 per acre. If you just inflated that to what we have here at 214 acres, you'd come to $6.4 million if we did here what they did. But the plans here are so much more. So if we start with our $28 million estimate for Price Fazio and get rid of all the things that Winter Park didn't do, let's see where we end up. So they didn't do a clubhouse. That's $3.5 million. They didn't build a maintenance building for $2.5 million. They didn't have to build a tunnel under 2nd Avenue. They have 6 street crossings and people just walk across the streets because it's a residential neighborhood. They didn't need golf maintenance equipment for $2.3 million. They didn't need lighting. They didn't need landscaping. They didn't dig lakes and move large amounts of earth to create interest in the golf course. That amount right there is nearly $1 million. They didn't build a teaching building with a learning center. They didn't put cart paths in. They didn't use paspalum grass, which was planned here. That's a much more expensive grass than some of the other types of grass. They didn't build any bathrooms or a halfway house, which is $750,000. They didn't worry about the grow-in time. They didn't add drainage. They didn't do major landscape clearing. They didn't put in a composter. They didn't relocate any trees. They didn't do new landscaping at the road entrances to make it more greater appeal to the neighborhood. They didn't put in an irrigation pump house. They didn't need maintenance facility tools, and they didn't add golf course accessories. I'm not even sure what some of those things are, but I know that they just took their golf course and regrassed, basically, and they did a very nice job. If you subtract all of those things from $28 million, you get to $6.5 million compared to $6.4 million. So I think that that's a very important understanding for people who look at the 28 million and say, oh, we're way too much. We need to do a $1.2 million job. Well, you can't do a $1.2 million job on 214 acres. And then you have to make maybe some tough decisions of what don't you want in this. But I think any reasonable person would look at these things and say, yeah, this is Boca Raton. We like these things. And then you can maybe debate the individual cost estimates of any one of those. But it's hard to say that any of those items are really not needed. So that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. That was great.
Question.
Yes, of course.
This is super enlightening as to the comparisons. You need to be talking to the purse string people. If you can bring this to them and explain to them,
Barry, why don't
we
you-
all know this.
Barry, why don't you step to the microphone and do a public request for us?
You can
Barry Tatro, 3088 Northwest 27th Avenue, Boca Raton. So, yeah, this is wonderful, but we need to show this to the people that are making the decisions about the fate of this golf course and the money they want to put in. Oh, they think, it's the Winter Park thing, that sounds really good. At the town hall, I didn't talk about it in that forum, but someone did bring up something about the golf course. They talk about it. Oh, and we have, such a wonderful thing up here. We have another way of looking at the situation over down here with this Winter Park thing. These people are not educated about what we've been going through for the last 2 years. They've attempted no catch-up, obviously, but this is the type of thing they need to know about. You want a good place, you got to pay for it. And to tell us, we're preaching to the same choir. So I don't know if you could get time and present that. I think it would be a pretty good rebuttal, or at least something to talk about and present to them. That this is not such a wild idea that it's going to cost as much.
Thank you. I did prepare an overview presentation without the detail that summarizes the total numbers, and I did send that to the city council and the mayor.
I think it needs to be done.
And same thing that I sent to the district commissioners last week.
Just a suggestion, I think this needs to be done in a public setting for the press and for all the people that are probably going to show up to this. It's not wasted on them, haphazardly looking, and maybe they catch it in their email and pay attention. It needs to be like you did. This is what we're doing. This is great. When you look at Tommy Fazio's courses around here, they're unbelievable. I mean, it's a who's list from, where they play, Palm Beach. Anyway, they don't know. I mean, I hope the hell Tommy has met with them, has had good one-on-ones, and has told them about why he needs to do what he's going to do to fulfill the requirements of the RFP. So anyway, that was a really good thing. I think it should be done more publicly to people who need to hear it more than us, because it was great that you did that, obviously. But anyone with a brain knows how much it's going to cost to build a beautiful golf course, which we demand. we're not, building just look at what's going on downtown. I mean, we let these people build these humongous buildings, but they're not bad. I mean, they're not horrible, but anyway, another question. Did you get the appraisal back on the Ocean Strand?
Yes, we did.
Would you like to share that with us?
It was a little over 67 million.
Okay, that's interesting. What are we going to do with this information?
We haven't discussed it yet. We're trying to get the.
Well, I
golf
think
course
it's good to
built.
get, yeah. Sell this thing, you want to buy it? 65 here, put a 67 in here, you owe us $2 million. And we got a golf course.
Is that an offer, Barry? Thank you. Who else would like to speak? Hi, Michael. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Michael Talbert, your Parks and Recreation Director. I am not going to speak about golf because I'm sure we're going to have a lot of that conversation. But I wanted to wish everyone a happy July as Parks and Recreation Month. And I thought I'd come and share some of the good news that we're doing around the community, since I know you guys have been preoccupied with some other stuff. First off, my condolences to Commissioner Engel and his family. I wanted to let everyone know that we're excited about your ribbon cutting coming up on Saturday, as well as the open house that's following that. I hope our community comes out and celebrates with all of us your accomplishment, as well as the opening of the splash pad. Is going to be fantastic. I hope you all received the budgets that we worked very hard on. I want to commend Brianne for working so closely with us. Gosh, we had many meetings and probably even more phone calls. And I want to recognize Jill Dixon, our finance manager, who's here with us, for kind of shepherding that whole process through. Gosh, it seems like we were working on it for a long time. For those of you all that may have gone, and for those of you all that didn't, July 4th went very, very well. Had a conversation with Mr. Starkoff just a few minutes ago. He recognized the improvements that we made, both from an aesthetics and wayfinding facility and event center, but also we really improved a lot of the safety for our citizens and visitors. It was great. I can tell you, by utilizing the field, it really opened up the property and the parcel. And I don't like to really guesstimate the amount of people that come to events, but our police department said we probably had anywhere between 12 and 15,000, so more than years in the past. That was fantastic. Camps are going well. I know we haven't had a lot of conversation about camps, but our numbers are up over 25% than last year. I attribute that to a lot of hard work that Carter and his marketing team is doing, as well as the quality of our programs. And then two things that you guys might be interested in coming up in the near future, probably the next couple of weeks. We're going to move some of our park rangers into Brianne and Melissa's old office. So we're going to have more of a presence at a Sugar Sand with our rangers. What we've actually done is we've created two zones. We now have an east zone of park rangers and a west zone. The east zone will still be working out of, obviously, their ranger offices, and then we'll create kind of a second office, which is going to be at a Sugar Sand and your old BPD offices. So until we really figure out what we're going to do with those offices and that boardroom, we want to utilize it for a good public service. So we'll have some rangers stationed out there. Finally, I want to invite everyone to one of our final July's Parks and Recreation Month events, the Intercoastal Cleanup. We always talk about doing beach cleanups, but this year we're actually going to go out on kayaks and canoes, and we're going to clean the Intercoastal from Gumbo Limbo to Spanish River Park. So that is going to be on July 27th from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. If you're interested, just give Gumbo Limbo a call, and they can definitely help you out. So thank you all, commissioners, and hope you guys all have a wonderful July's Parks and Recreation Month.
We'll see you on Saturday. Thank you, Michael.
Earl Starkoff, 3260 St. Charles Way. Before you get back to the other fireworks, I just want to echo Michael's remarks about the fireworks. And I had a chance to convey it to Michael, but I want to convey it to you as the commissioners, because you split the costs with the city for the public display. In 40 years that I've lived here, gone to all of them from FAU to the park, this was the single best event for 4th of July. My wife and I have ever attended. We just couldn't help but remark how well laid out it was. We saw by eliminating all traffic parking in the park, how much safer it got for those pedestrians as well as entry and exit from the park, which was always a conflict between motor vehicles and the pedestrian traffic. The police did a fabulous job erecting barricades so that you didn't have pedestrians crossing the entrance road where the trolleys would move in and out, so there was much better traffic movement. The additional space freed up by the parking was very well utilized. There were probably 3 or 4 more refreshment or food trucks. There were 3 or 4 more amusements, which, even though, and I agree with Michael, it was probably the largest crowd I've ever seen there. I don't take counts either, but it was dispersed nicely. The lines weren't as long. People were able to get through the attractions and the food displays. The use of the fields was wonderful. It was just like a soccer day. It was lawn chairs and families playing games and enjoying the time. So you can get back to the rest of the fireworks, but this was a good one. And you should certainly, as you go through your budget deliberations, know that it was very well handled. Your money was the best spent I've ever seen.
Thank you, Earl.
All right. Tom Thayer here, 4821 North Dixie Highway in Boca Raton. And before we get back to the golf course discussion, I would just like to re-invite everybody to our next Homeowners Federation meeting, which will be the first Tuesday in August. It's about August 5th, I do believe. And we had a little hiatus in July there for the 4th of July. And our August meeting, as always, because the county commission is on vacation, we get the update from our local county commissioner, Senor Weinroth. So put that on your calendar and plan to come out and enjoy a update on what the county is doing. Now back to the golf course situation, and Rick does a great job on his presentation. I would like to just point out that the city council will be back in session next Monday. The CRA meeting at 1:30, the workshop to follow. And I would suggest that some of the people that have a vested interest in the golf course come down and talk to the city council. And to have the 214 acres compared with 40 acres in Winter Park, which several commissioners have indicated that that's what they want, a 9-hole putt-putt course instead of a championship course that Boca Raton deserves, I think is a foolish way to go. So if you can't get the financing out of the city, then hopefully Art's got a nice presentation today for you on the millage rate, and finance it yourself and take control of it, keep control of it. Other thing, if the city gets back involved or gets involved, you're looking at another 2-year delay in all the planning processes and everything, public hearings that you've gone through. And we've seen very few city council people attend any of those hearings over the last 2 years or so. They have not been kept up, and obviously your meetings are not televised or anything, so they're not hiding behind the camera someplace and observing all the activity that's taken place here before this board over a long period of time. So that's all. I would still like to take out the tunnel. That's a great inconvenience. I don't see how you're going to route traffic and build a tunnel and do it with any sort
We
of
did take
short
it out, Tom.
span time.
We took it out. We took it out of the budget. This was just a comparison of,
Okay, well, I'm still opposed to the tunnel.
okay,
And let's run the traffic golf carts across the grade level and do the signalization thing and the other things that are a lot less expensive. So that's all I got for you. Thank you very much.
and Tom, I think your meetings on the Homeowners Federation is on a Tuesday.
Yes.
That's the 6th, August 6th,
Okay.
okay?
And they'll probably be in the annex because can't focus, we can't put it in the community side.
Okay.
Look at your events.
All right. Mr. Duquette, we've missed you.
Buenos dias from Europe. That's where I was at last meeting. But for the record, Robert Duque, 5351 Northwest Third Terrace. I have 3 issues to talk about. The first one is not golf. Since I was gone, I did try to watch this meeting on YouTube, and I don't know if any of you have tried that. It is poor. And unfortunately, with the camera back here, you can't see anything that's on the board here. So I would suggest at the very least that you move the camera, and I could not even understand the audio for most of the comments. So unfortunately, I know I have encouraged my friends and neighbors to look at YouTube. There was a total of 8 that I saw last night that watched the video. The first 1 or 2 sections of the video, and the third section it dropped 1 to 4. Because if you went through those first 2, the other sections were poor. So again, I would hope that maybe do your budgeting, you improve your communication capabilities when it comes to this meeting. The second issue that I have is regarding the tax millage rate, and that you're being considered tonight. I'd like to point out the perception versus the reality. The reality is that the city is not planning to give the district sufficient funds for the golf course construction. The perception is that the district and the city are not cooperating, and the district has taken a year to communicate their plan to the city. The perception by the city residents is that their taxes may go up due to this lack of cooperation. The reality is the district planned all along to request financial assistance for construction via a second loan or grant from the city. The reality is that the district agreed to an interlocal agreement with the city that the district would pay for the construction improvements after the purchase. The reality is the district does not have the money, nor would it be financially prudent to borrow the $20 million needed. So again, what is in the best interest of the Boca Raton residents, the golfer, and the taxpayers? I think the lack of cooperation is not in the best interest of the taxpayer or the golfer. If you're interested in what is right, then it's time that we start working, that you start working with the city, even if it results in turning over the construction of the project to the city. I think the bottom line is that you need to have a better ILA with the city so that you have oversight, and they will build something other than a 9-hole course. As a matter of fact, the city has the funds for the course, so it just doesn't seem fair for the residents to have to be thinking about paying more taxes when we know the money is there. Many people I talk to, and I'm sure you talk to people, they call this district the Parks and Rec Department. And that's the perception, unfortunately, that you see and I see, and maybe some people in this room even call you the Parks and Rec Department. And so the perception is that you got $65 million. Why are you going to raise my taxes? So that's, I'm sure, something that we'd like to avoid if at all possible. Also, regarding the Winter Park 9 that was mentioned here again tonight, Rick did an excellent job. Unfortunately, based upon my viewing of the events of the city, I only see one person in the city, one city council member that's actually talking about a Winter Park 9 type of construction. If there are more, I mean, I've talked to some of the city council members, and the ones I've talked to, they agreed to at least 18 holes, with the exception of Thompson. So I think that, that certainly is not something that is hopefully going to come about, but I think that with residential input and with ILA that might have, oversight by at least the district, if that were to happen, I think that's better than doing nothing or having our taxes raised. So again, I ask you to do what's in the best interest of the city taxpayer, and don't raise the millage rate for paying for something that we can probably get done without having higher taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kay. Who else would like to speak? Anyone else? Okay. Well, public requests are now closed. And we're going to go to the approval of the minutes of the board meeting of July 1st, 2019. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Second. Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Vicki? Okay, we are now at our regular business. Then our first item of business is the millage rate presentation by Mr. Koski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think everyone who is here tonight has become too familiar with the difficulties that we've had up to date with regard to the potential financing for the Oakland National Golf Course. I don't think there's any individual in this room who does not agree with the design concept that has been brought to us by Price Fazio. And I truly believe that there is no one down at City Hall sitting in a position as a councilman or councilwoman that truly feels that the design of Price Fazio isn't the type of design that we want for this facility. What we seem to have done is get caught up in, unfortunately, the finances. Now, I am going to simply say to you and recommend to you, and again, I don't suggest that you take this up tonight for consideration, but rather in the absence of Mr. Engel, wait until your next meeting. But over my years in the construction business, which began when I was a kid and professionally in the years of 1966 forward, I have been involved in many, many, many types of different construction projects. From the building of high schools, building bank buildings, deepening of harbors, roadway work, all of the utility work, in fact, all of the utility work in Hidden Valley was designed by myself and others in the same firm. I have been affiliated with this board for 40 years. Some of you may think it's too long, but I've learned a lot. And my thought with regard to this golf course, I think can be summed up in two parables. One, you don't get anything done unless you do it yourself. And two, I think Nike stole it. Just do it. And that's my recommendation to this board. Just do it. Build this golf course as your own, as you have built all of your other facilities in the city of Boca Raton. And I believe that there is a very reasonable way in order to accomplish this. Contrary to what Mr. Duquette said, every single facility built by this district, every park that they have built, every beach that they have improved, as with the exception of Gummo Limbo, where there was a state grant, has been built with city of Boca Raton taxpayer money. And not once has there ever been objection by the taxpayer that they haven't gotten their money's worth for what you've done. Without this district, the city of Boca Raton would not be what it is today. And this is not the time to turn back. Now, I've been spending a great deal of time with Wayne and Price Fazio. I've been reviewing your upcoming military. And keep in mind, in the development of prior projects. We always considered millage rates and the raising of money through taxes in the planning as well as the construction of facilities. You have in your package, I believe, a little spreadsheet from Mr. Timberlake. Now let's keep in mind what we're dealing with. We're dealing with sum of money for construction of this golf course and a sum of money to reimburse the city of Boca Raton pursuant to the interlocal agreement. At which time, when the city is reimbursed, the city will convey by quitclaim deed to you all of the property, and the entirety of this golf course facility will become under the ownership and operation and supervision and management of this board. And I suggest to you that that is the only way that you are going to get this project done. Now, we can wait till we see what the city is going to do in the way of contributing to this particular matter. But keep in mind, when we talk about city, this district also has 25 to 30,000 individuals who live outside of the city that contribute taxes to this district. So the city gets an automatic 25% discount by having the district be involved in the funding of improvements. The city resident does. And I'm a city resident, and I've been so since a long time ago. I've paid a lot in taxes, and never once do I object to what I've been getting for my taxes. I have no complaints with what the city does, with the taxes they receive. We have excellent utility service. We have excellent police. We have excellent fire. I have absolutely no complaints with what the district has done because we have excellent park and recreational facilities. Now, we have a $19 million commitment to the city on the purchase price. And we have a commitment, we're an estimate, and I say estimate, to the best of the design of Price Fazio's ability for the construction of this golf course and all of the amenities that go with it. In today's society, when you put this project out for competitive bidding, I'm sure you're going to find a much better price than the normal architect or engineer's estimates that are given. But it is no coincidence that we're now approaching our budget time, and I'm coming forward to you with this recommendation. Mr. Timberlake has suggested that with a 30% increase in the millage rate, that this district will raise an additional $9 million per year over and above what its normal operating expenditures are. $9 million. In 5 years, after the first year, that increase in millage rate will become your rollback rate. In 5 years of this millage rate, with this increase, you will have had enough money to fully pay for the cost associated with this golf course and fully reimburse the city on the outstanding bond issues. A little bit of a an issue there with regard to the fact that the bond issue to the city says that they took from Raymond James says no prepayment. But I think a reading of the interlocal agreement says that if we pay the city what we owe them under the agreement, we are complied with that agreement and will get the deed for the property. So in a 5-year period, you can own this property 100%. The district is the person, the entity that will be in the position of making determinations on this golf course. Mr. Ranthwaite from Price Fazio has come up with a very interesting proposition relative to potential phasing of this. Keep in mind, we also have $20 million in the bank. At least that was the number that was given to me last week. I think that's correct. Mr. Price Fazio and I have had numerous discussions upon the best way to construct this project. I certainly don't think it's by turning the project over to the city. I think it's by the district doing it. And I think we can do it in phases so that we can get golf in Bogus started as quickly as possible. Now, Wayne, if I may call him by his first name, because I have trouble pronouncing the last name. Even though my daughter-in-law is from South Africa, Wayne, nothing offensive. I'm going to call you Wayne. The thought is that the north parcel on the west parcel is probably the most probable and the most attractive parcel for a construction of 9 holes. Now, if we began a project where we said phase 1 is going to be construction of the northwest 9 holes, we will get to a number. It's going to be a whole lot less than 27 million. I don't think you can make it an allocation, straight out line allocation. It'll be 1/3 of 27 million. But even if you want to, go ahead and do that. The 9 million that you're going to get in the first tranche from your millage increase is enough to build it. Now, one would say, okay, if you're a golfer, you really would like to have a driving range available to you before you went out and not have to use holes 1 through 4 as your driving range. But Wayne said, we are blessed with a natural barrier between the South Nine and the North Nine, and that is Flintmore Road. So why not take and design and construct holes 1 and 2 of the south course while we're building the north course, and use holes 1 and 2 as the driving range that one needs for a golf. Then under phase 2, after we complete that north 9, we will have a driving range and a completed 9-hole golf course ready for play. We can probably get all of our construction plans done over the course of the next 90 days. And we can, with a little bit of effort, potentially get this project out to bid sometime in the month of October. Maybe, certainly no later than the 1st of November. And maybe have that 9-hole facility opened by September of 2020, as we talked about before, because we're only building 9 holes rather than 27. There is now a place for everybody to play. We can get the grow-in season. We can do the work on that north course. Now, once the north course is out now being playable, we then can do one of two things. You're going to have another year of tax money coming in. You can build the south course and complete a full 18-hole course and have that in operation 12 months after that. Or you could jump over to the east side and build your driving range over there so that in all of your other golf facilities for a number much less than $9 million. And I'm using 9 simply as being a third of 27 million, which I think it's going to be a lot less. But that millage rate increase that is shown on the spreadsheet of Mr. Timberlake would allow you to build the north side in year 1, 2, build the east side golf amenities, including the clubhouse. 3, build the south 9. And then 4 and 5, reimburse the city for the outstanding bond issue, which you're going to pay anyway. You're gonna have to pay that, be it over time, or be it now, or be it in 3 years from now. That bond issue, if it's paid in 3 or 4 years from now, will be removed from our line item as an expense in our budget moving forward. Now, one of the difficulties in making proposals like this is that there are those people who will say, don't raise my taxes to accomplish this. And there'll be those people who will say, I don't mind you raising taxes for this particular facility. And I suggest there's quite a few in the latter group. But there's one way to find out. If you, at your next meeting, were to, by majority vote, say to the property appraiser, include in the notice of proposed taxes that is received by every property owner in town, a statement that will show that you are proposing an increase of that 30%. Then one of 3 things, keep in mind, that's just a notice. The notice also has in there that there will be a public hearing. The first public hearing that will be required for you in order to get your final budget, final millage rate, and your money from the town. So at that first public hearing, of which everybody is going to have notice, everybody reads those little white rectangular notices very carefully. One of 3 things is going to happen. The people who want the golf course are going to come in and say thank you and applaud you. 2, people who don't want their taxes raised for the golf course are going to come in and throw tomatoes at you. Or 3, which has historically been the case over my 40 years plus with this district, nobody's going to show up for the meetings. In which case, you five individuals can gather from what happens under those three scenarios as to what the general public wants, not what one person wants, not what three people want, but the general public. Not what the city council may want, but what the general public wants. Now, there is also an opportunity under this type of arrangement for the city to finally make a decision. We want to buy into this project and we want to give you some money. Now, I'm not taking any bets on what that's going to be. But if, perchance, city council decided, yes, we want to buy in and we want to buy in for X dollars, well, as long as that decision is made by the city, conveyed to you and you rely upon it before your second public hearing, we can reduce our proposed millage rate to the taxpayers. But at least you will have had not limited welcome input from individuals who come to all these meetings, but input now from people that may have no interest in golf or are more interested in their taxes. And you can draw a lot of conclusions and inferences from what will be said at those public hearings, if any. I suggest to you there won't be very many people coming. I think we'll see the same faces, but I don't think we'll see many more. But the city will still have an opportunity to buy into this with hard dollars. If they say to you, I don't want you to raise your millage rate because the city taxes are going up, well, that is somewhat foolish because the same millage rate increase is going to be applied to the other city residents, and they're going to get money that they would not normally get under the taxation by themselves for giving you money. They save 25 cents on every dollar by having the people in the district who live outside of the city pay into your development and operation of your facilities. They will have an opportunity to come forward or an opportunity to remain silent. An opportunity to say, no, go it yourself, or we want to be in. But I say to you that you should take the first step and cast that first stone. We are going to do it ourselves. And then take the next step. Just go do it. And I'm hoping that at our next meeting, and that you'll have an opportunity to discuss some of the information that Mr. Timberlake has given to you. But believe me, if you don't do it, it ain't gonna get done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Koski. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Mr. Koski at this point?
I have some information, maybe for Jay or for Mr. Kowski. For purposes of our first setting of the rate, do you need a majority board approval or not? I don't think you need any.
Majority.
Yeah, majority board approval for.
First, to send to the principal.
This is the second part. There are 2 meetings prior to setting the rate.
Right.
And is it 110% or what is it? From that?
It'll be a unanimous vote from the board in order to accomplish that millage increase.
Which
Which is 110% above the rollback rate.
oh, so it's off the rollback rate.
If the rate is not more than 110% above the rollback rate, it will require 2/3. A rate in excess of 110%, the rollback rate requires unanimous vote.
So at any time, up until that second meeting, you have the ability to pull the plug on that idea. But you will at least have afforded the general public the opportunity to come and weigh in on an approach like this to do this project.
So just to make sure I'm perfectly clear in understanding it, the rollback rate is 0.8808. If I go 1.1 times that, that's something the majority of the board can approve and go forward, correct? If they go above that to a higher rate, that is, let's say 125% of the rollback rate, you need a unanimous vote.
At this stage, we need a majority to set a tentative millage rate.
But forget the tentative.
The final budget.
Final millage comes September, and the answer is yes. Unanimous vote.
You only need unanimous for above 100.
You need 100%, each one of the commissioners to vote yes in order to have that final millage rate and final budget adopted.
Erin, you had a question?
Yeah, I have one question. So I was just going back through some stuff, and I'm just kind of disheartened by the fact that this is recommended to pay for the golf course. Notes from March 6, 2017. One of the questions from City Council was if the district proceeds with acquisition either directly or through the city, is the district able to acquire and operate the Ocean Breeze Golf Course within its existing budget and millage? Response, yes, based upon financial analysis performed by the district's financial advisor, Mr. Timberlake. And obviously, he's not here to discuss this, but this was your response.
But there was also a response. If you go back further, when the city asked, will you be coming back to us to ask for more money after the purchase?
Right.
We said yes. We would be coming back for a second tranche for the construction.
Right, so we agreed that we were coming back to them to request more money, which we are doing,
That's correct. But-
right?
but-
Not increasing
but
our
at
millage.
this particular point, we haven't had an affirmative reply.
Right, which we will hopefully next week.
Well, maybe you will, maybe you won't. I hope you do. And I hope it's more than $1, as has been presented to us before.
Mhm.
And I hope it makes sense so that you can utilize that money accordingly. But keep in mind, that's only 75 cents on the dollar. The raise of the millage rate, the city would be wise to hold on to that money rather than to give it to you so they could send a millage rate increase to 25,000 people that live outside of the city, in the district. So from a financial perspective, it makes sense for everybody in the district to be a part of the funding of this particular project, not just the people who live in the city. And if the city gives you money, it is giving you money ostensibly from the sale of the golf course or from the general fund, which are funds that have been exclusively raised from the city taxpayer.
For me, I don't agree with raising a single family home being one of them, $80 for this golf course, which we were told that we could pay for, and not have an increase in millage for that. I'm not opposed to a small millage increase to pay for capital improvements that are on our docket from, have been on our docket for a few years that need to get done. But in terms of raising the millage this much to pay for this golf course to get it done, when we haven't even heard from the city yet, and we know that they're in to be a partner, I think it's not fair to the taxpayers.
It would be fair to give the taxpayers an opportunity to weigh in on the subject.
I see what you're saying, but
And
I never see those notices in the mail for sure.
when you get them, you're
I'm sure I get them, and I probably look through them briefly, but the last thing I have time to do is go and talk about millage increases.
Well,
So I don't know if we're actually gonna get a response from the general public
I
in
don't,
terms of what they want. From the people that I've talked to who are not golfers, I have had the response that, no, we don't want a tax increase to pay for the golf course. No,
but isn't it the same thing as getting money from the city? Aren't you using city money that originated
yes, but we're
through
not
taxes?
we're not asking the families to pay another $80 now for that course.
No, you're not. I agree with you. You're not asking the now. You're taking the tax dollars from people who've already paid it to pay into it.
See, I don't see it that way. I see it as if we raise the millage, we're asking families to put another $80 towards this golf course.
And you're also approaching the philosophical question that you do in every capital improvement. Do you put the burden on the people now for a capital improvement? Or do you put the burden spread out to those people who are going to use it? And we're hoping this is going to be a positive when it comes to the operation. But philosophically, that's a difficult choice to say, let's make everybody now pay for it as compared to saying, spread it out to those people who are going to use it in the future and have it available to them in the future.
Let me just ask you a question, Aaron. My kids and my family, we don't use the swimming racket club, but we still pay toward it. So,
Okay, that's fine, but what I'm saying is we were told that we wouldn't have to have a millage rate to pay for this. And we haven't had a response from the city yet.
well,
And we're talking about an $80 increase per family for this. And we were told that we wouldn't have to raise the millage for that.
well, it isn't $80. It's $80 on a $300,000 property.
Okay, so I own a $300,000 property, so it would be $80 per
But
year.
not everybody's. Others may be paying more, others will be paying less.
Right, so it's the same percentage per family.
Right.
Yeah.
Bob, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think for clarification, when we had that presentation with the city to ask for approval of, of a loan, Art very clearly said, we will be back for another tranche of money. At that point, no millage rate was contemplated if we were to get that tranche of funds. Now, we've been before the city council numerous times, have given them numerous answers to questions, still have not had an affirmative response. And, I used to believe in the Easter Bunny, and at the same time think that the city would give us a grant from the sale of Oakland Municipal, but that's very unlikely, I think. And there really hasn't been any affirmation from anyone that what they would contribute, how much or how little, and what the terms and conditions are. I just remember when we were talking about doing phase 2 at the Hornley. We worked on an agreement that if we agreed to participate in half of the local share of the beach renourishment and agreed to put down sports turf over at Nash Reef, then we would they would be agreeable to us doing phase 2 at the Hornley. Well, for the record, we have done, are in the process of doing phase 2, doing Nash Reef and sports turf. We've agreed to the local share of the beach renourishment, half of the local share. And yet we got back a master and local agreement that was a surprise to us. It took away a lot of our legislative duties. So I guess what I'm saying to you is that we need to be prepared, and I think that's what Mr. Koski is saying. We simply need to be prepared for the eventuality that the city says, we're not going to participate in this, or what the terms of their participation will be that we are not acceptable, that we don't feel is acceptable. So I for one, know when we passed, we increased our millage rate to purchase this place where we're sitting right now. We had very little objection from people who don't use it. And I'm not a user of this facility. I don't play tennis. I don't come to the swimming facility. But I recognize the value of the recreational components to this community. If we can't wait any longer to get this course started. And as Art said, one way to do that is for us to do the project and to have the funds that we would have available if we did go to this higher millage rate. No one likes the tax increase. I certainly don't. But you look around at what a tax increase will do for you, as it is at Swim and Racket, where we're sitting today. It's a marvelous facility. When we have built projects, we've been, somewhat castigated by the fact that we've been over budget on some of these items. And maybe some of the concern is our physical management of these projects. But this project was promoted as being a little bit over budget, but a lot of that's due to the demolition work that we did over at Ocean Breeze, and just as an addendum to the existing construction contract, so we could get that done quicker. I think with Patch Reef, we're showing what we can do when we really take a close look at it, because we're right on time and on budget, right, Melissa?
Yes, sir.
And I feel we could do the same thing if this course is turned over to us for the construction and the oversight of the management. And I, for one, will stand in public and say I do believe that this is a proper thing to do with the millage rate. And I would support, at least going forward, we don't have to settle on this as our final millage rate, but we can certainly put the message out there that we're going to take some action. We're tired of messing around. We're ready to get this project done. This is about the only way we're going to do it if the city doesn't come through with their grant. We don't need another loan. We need a grant. I paid for the Boca Municipal with my tax dollars, and I'm expecting some of my tax dollars from that course to go to work on Boca National. I think it's only fair and right, but I may be daydreaming, and I've been told that by many folks that that's the possibility. The council might rather have a nice new project downtown for their home offices. But I think that the appropriate way to get that funds out would be to help us with this course. And if they do not, I'm prepared to go forward with the millage rate so that we can get the course on our own.
Thank you, Bob. Craig, you had something else to say?
Yes. First of all, we haven't gotten to that meeting. So, a lot of this all stems back to the communication. And so without good communication with the city, we don't know. And so I understand the frustration you're sharing on that, Bob. And I did go through the proposed budget, and there's multiple pieces of this puzzle. So a part of it is the budget. And I also was enlightened by our mayor about, I asked him point blank, I'm not hesitated when I'm talking to him to push him, where is he going on some of these things? And one thing he did point out to me, and I reconfirmed it just now in the budget, is the Thomas DeHorney Phase 2, the city is prepared to take that project on at their expense. So that's a $9 million expense that we initially had last year. We were thinking it was in our budget. So I think that's a good contribution in the step of, if we don't have to assume that expense in the future years, that's something that we can apply to it. So I feel like we have not had a good dialogue, and it's Jill Dixon, so I think we need to have a better dialogue on our budget to say, okay, these are the components of what we have and what we don't have. Some of these things we can't really do. And I'm not comfortable with additional maintenance facilities at any other location until we know what we're doing with the maintenance facility here. And I think, I've walked through the facilities. It's a nice facility, a lot of little rooms in there and stuff, but I don't know what we're doing with them. So there's in our budget is over $3 million of those extra maintenance facilities over the next couple of years. I don't want to say no, and I don't want to say yes, but I think we need to really understand that our budget and the city's budget together, and maybe it's a combination of things, is that combination of things being, don't know about the millage rate, we'll cross that road when it comes, but we do have to find out from the city, are they contributing or not? We have to adjust our budget. I think there's a good sign in there. It's true, the $9 million is all on the city for Phase 2 of Thomas DeHorney, and that's scheduled here, so I think they're really going to do it. So I'm optimistic. I take them at face value that they're going to do that. And there are other components of it we need to really dig deeper in to understand. Just not quite there yet.
Craig, I totally agree with you as far as the budget goes. I wasn't even going there because there are a number of things in the budget that you touched on that we can't do. And even if we did not have a millage rate, we would still be in some financial condition where we couldn't do the maintenance and the development of the existing projects that we need to do. I mean, one of the areas at Petrie, the community center, that's something that has not even been addressed that maybe needs to be done. A second field house at Sugar Sand Park to accommodate the expansion of pickleball and other activities that are important. I think whether we went to this higher millage rate or not, we're still going to have an increase if we want to accomplish those things and maintain our property to the standard that our constituents have become accustomed to. So I agree with what you're saying. There's things in the budget that we're going to have to flesh out, but I wasn't even suggesting that I wasn't going to talk about that, because the one thing I want to do is that I want to be prepared, and I agree that the city hasn't made a commitment to us yet. And I'm just one of these folks have been sitting here for a very long time and have been disappointed more than once on things that I hoped would come through and did not. So, and I want the city to work with us, but if the thing that keeps coming back to me, that master and local agreement was such a shock to us. I don't want to be similarly surprised and then be caught where we have to look to these folks here and say, well, we're going to have another 6 months or a year delay as we figure out the funding. That's all.
Fair enough. I think that when we get, it's kind of a combination of everything. One, on the budget side, there's an operational component that we all agree the staff has done a phenomenal job. And to a normal person, when we talk about these different things, the differences between the city and the district, we look a little dysfunctional. So I'm concerned about that communication. So I want to be very careful on those things, because I think the staff is genuinely 110%, 150% doing the right thing on all the areas. And I want to be very supportive of and conscious of the staff and get better communication amongst all of us with the district. And I think we're kind of missing that. And that's the frustration that you've gotten and I've gotten just being in the past 2.5 years. It's very frustrating seeing all the things go on that we do, because we have a direct pulse on people coming to us. They want batting cages, they want these. I get it. The city does not have that. This golf course, I do think, becomes a little bit of a political thing. Some people are trying to make a point on it, and I'm not appreciative of those people trying to make a point of something else that's not there. But we have to still do the right thing by the residents, and the focus is, how do we get this done at the lowest cost combined? If we go on our own path, or the city goes on our own path, it's more than likely going to be more expensive. My feeling has always been the city needs to be a supportive, willing partner, not just financially, but also, they can slow something down incredibly. I mean, looking at every freaking tree out there and moving things is going to be crazy. So we need them together as a partner, and it's got to be a project team. It's not us versus them. It's not their land, our land. It is together. It's got to be a joint effort on the whole thing. And yes, someone has to be in charge of the project, because it's important that there's a decision made. We haven't even gotten there yet. I'm hopeful that Monday's meeting will get to that point. And one other thing I want us to consider for the golf course, going back, and I've seen all the emails from the Boca Chica residents. I get it. They've got a strong say to have a golf course. I haven't seen them come up with any money to give us for this project. They could special assess or do something, but at a minimum, I wouldn't have bought the golf course. I wouldn't have been involved buying the golf course if it wasn't to save, the green space and prevent future development. And that's important to me. But it's also important to me is having the signage, and that has to be clarified legally. And if we can't have the proper signage on the model or anywhere else out there, then we shouldn't be doing much more work on this. So from my perspective, I'd like to see that buttoned up where it is done, and then we can move on these things. But I also think we should consider the hotel site, which already is zoned a hotel. And I did read that survey again of what we did out there. that hotel site should be marketed as a hotel site, and we'll find out what we get. And so when we bought this, we were talking about it's possibly a perpetuity of something. It could be 3 or 4 million, but I think it should be marketed as a hotel over the next 6 months to see what you really get. There is an active market for hotels, and until you go out and market it with a real marketing of it, you're not going to know what you really have there. And it's zoned as a hotel, so sell it as a hotel. Does that kick in 3 or 4 million? Maybe that's the right thing to do, because that's where you put your restaurant, that's where you put your programming office. No, it's not going to be a grand clubhouse or anything, but we reduced the cost structure of the whole thing. And it's already zoned there. We don't have to rezone anything. So,
Yeah, Gregory, I don't think we're too far off in disagreement on any of this. And I want to clarify one thing. If there's been a mistaken impression that I'm unhappy with the staff that does what we do here, I want to correct that. My conversation is not toward Mike and Michael Calvert and his staff. My conversation is more directed to the leadership of our community, and that's the city council. And I don't know how this friction developed, but I know it was there when I got on this commission 24 years ago, and it's still there to some degree. And I'm not sure, because I've been asked that question more than one time. I would just like to have a conversation with them that's not political. That just says, how do we get this project done? The idea with the hotel, that's something that can be done as we go forward, whether doesn't depend on what we get from the city or what the millage rate is going to be. We can always do that. If we're talking about phasing in this project, selling that parcel off as a hotel would just help us pay for the next phase sooner. So I'm in agreement with that. But I do believe that by having a discussion, whether we could get a 5-0 vote for the highest millage rate that Merv is proposing is somewhat in doubt. But it doesn't take anything but a majority vote to get it on the trim that we send out to folks. And then if the public wants to weigh in and say, we shouldn't be doing this. I mean, we have a history of listening to our constituents, and I do believe that we would listen to our constituents and try to find another way. But this is one of the most expedient ways I think we get going if we don't have any support from the city council. That's all. So.
And I'd like to clarify too that Michael Calvert and his team and Rand have been working very, very hard to get this budget together, and it's been a give and take. They have listened to each other, and Rand has done an excellent job for the board in trying to make sure that we have all the things in place once we got our budget in hand. So, Michael, thank you. And Rand. Do you have any other questions for Art? Thank you very much, Mr. Koski. That was excellent. Okay. Since we have postponed items 2 and 3, we're at the number 4, the budget discussion in the city CIP. We've all received our budgets, and we've had a little bit of a chance to look at them. Do you have anything that you'd like to bring up and ask Mr. Calvert or any of the staff or our staff, commissioners?
One thing just to add, the Exhibit H, we put a copy of the revised Exhibit H in everybody's folders, and it's to replace the Exhibit H in the binder.
Yeah, I have a question, and Mr. Koski might be able to answer this. On our budget, one of the line items is general fund administration. How long has that been in place?
I don't know the exact date, but it's been in place for at least 25, 30 years.
Wow.
It was the result of a study done by a firm out of Texas, Maximus, in an attempt to try to determine how much of the city staff time, administrative staff time, was being devoted to issues relating for the district, not to the district, but for the district. The study is completed. I have a copy of it. Everybody, I can send it to you to see how we did it. It's basically what the old timers we call a time and motion study. But it was ultimately a decision that we would agree upon a fixed number of 325,000.
That was a fixed number that we had agreed upon at 325,000 a year, and now we're at 500,000 plus. And that was my question, is how we got there. And I know we've expanded the services, but I think we're doing even more now on some of our projects like Sugar Sand Park. I mean, I want to be sure, Brian, that when we take on a project that we do, that doesn't get intermingled in with the administrative costs that we're end up having to pay a percentage of, if you understand what I'm saying.
I do. So this year, it's up, that particular line is at 21% over last year. So we did ask for clarification. And in your books, Exhibit G is the breakdown. So it goes through. We still have a couple more questions that we're working on. For example, with the pension, they have us broken out with 255 employees, but not all of those are full-time. So we're looking for some reconciliation there because part-time employees don't get a pension or retirement benefits. So there's still some things that have to be clarified, but G goes through what Mr. Kosky was talking about, and that was the proportion. So the major increase came because Human Resources expanded their department last year. We don't get a notification that that's happening until this budget is sitting in front of us. So there are some outstanding questions, but this is the breakdown on Exhibit G that shows how they got to that total based upon the math that they used some years ago.
So, Joe, can you explain Exhibit G? I mean, I don't understand the numbers.
Okay.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Will we do it? No, go ahead. You want to do it.
Go for it.
Okay.
Yes.
You want to go stand up there or you want to do that? Oh, thank you, Joe.
So this particular exhibit is actually put together by the city's finance department. This is not put together by the rec services staff, but Human Resources. So their budget is a little over $2 million. It's the first line. So the ratio basis that they use is the number of employees. So there are 1,817 total employees in the city. 255 of those employees go into the Beecher Park District facilities. So the percentage is 14%. So then they allocate that out that the district owes 14% of the overall HR. Is that, you guys following that along?
I got it. So then what is the total basis and district portion number?
So the total, okay, so for that particular one, the total basis is on how many employees there are in the city.
I got it. Okay. So
And the district is 255 of those 1,817 people.
got it. So can you kind of keep walking down the list?
Sure. So then purchasing, which is a division that is in financial services, they have a $914,000 budget. So for this one, the ratio is based on how many Beecher Park District facility purchase orders there were in the previous fiscal year. So there were totally by the city 28,979 purchase orders issued. Of that, 3,281 were district purchase orders. So that's 11%. So that's $103,000.
Okay.
So keep going. So accounts payable, again, their whole function cost is $266,033. The number of accounts payable checks issued, 53,445. The district portion of that is 8,326. So that's 15.58%. So the share for the district is 41,444. General finance, admin, and budget, they are $1.3 million, so that's their total operating cost. That's the city's total operating cost, the 335, is that million? Yeah, 335 million. So the district portion is the 17,844,000. That should be familiar with the operating cost budget. So that's 5% the district is, and then that's 72,000. So keep going.
Yep.
Okay, payroll and account. So that's payroll.
That's how we all get paid. So that's $516,987 is what they have for that. So again, that's the number of employees for the city, which is 1,817. 255 of those are district employees, so that's again the 14%. So that is 72,555. The pension was the one that Brian had asked me about earlier, so I have a question into the finance department about that. Again, their function cost is $407,000. Based on the number of employees, there are 1,817. That includes full-time and part-time, and that's Brian's question right now.
But part-time do not get pension.
That's Brian's question right now, so I have a question into finance about that. So then, right, again, it's a 14%, which is 57,150. And then the last one is risk management, 502,000. So based on, again, on the number of employees, I don't know how they agreed with that, but that's what they have is by number of employees, so 14%.
So is this schedule consistent with all the prior years, same thought logic?
Yes, they just changed, they based on the previous fiscal year.
Yeah, but the same ratios,
Correct.
percents is
At least for the last 5 or 6 years that I've looked through, because I compared
Okay.
a few years, so.
So other than just kind of making sure it's procedurally written up, it sounds like you've been doing it the same way.
You're right, finance gives this to us and they have they have a whole explanation that was in an email if you want to see that. Okay.
No, I mean, it's good, I'm glad you have a thought logic and it's consistent,
Right.
so look, costs go up, so.
Well, I'm not disputing that fact, but when we're trying to do a budget, the 2019 projection was 578,000. Now we're looking at 699,000. That's, it's a pretty good leap without having any kind of a heads up on that. And those are the kind of things. Same thing. I know we've had this same. In fact, I think this is the first time I've seen this exhibit since I've been here. But I knew what the percentages were. 65-35 on technical and supervisory and technical, and then these were broken down according to Greg.
That's the first time I've seen that.
Yeah.
I think I'm looking for procedure, consistency, a thought logic there. I don't say I agree to it, but it's a thought logic. So, and as long as you've been doing this all these years, I guess that it comes back to that communication issue, not having a good gauge of things going up.
Well, and that was the reason why I brought it up. Is that there should be some ways to improve that communication, so we're not surprised by these increases. And as I said earlier, even without doing a major project like the Boca National, we're still going to have to be dealing with some of these increases. And if there's justification for doing those facilities that we talked about, the maintenance facilities at Spanish River and also at the Harmon Park, then I think that knowing where these figures are coming from is important to us in our budgeting process.
Yeah, so I agree. I'd like to move on to some of the other items, but before we even do that, Brianne, did you have any success in getting from the National Golf Foundation, the report, because that's a big key part of this whole budget process, and that's our budget.
It is not ready yet. They have some vacation schedules. So hopefully by next week we'll have it.
Okay, don't go wait till. We're not done here on the budget stuff. As long as you're here, I think we should take advantage of her information. So we don't have our golf course numbers, the details.
We don't have that.
But it's okay, because we're gonna take a year to build it anyway, we're not gonna be able to do anything with it, but we do need to, we're gonna do that. Okay, fine, so coming back to the main part of the budget here, Jill, I see the thing kind of divided into a lot of different projects. And so some of those projects we may want to talk about and kind of go through. Not knowing where we're going on the golf course, I think many of these things have to be kind of not committed. I don't know how we can possibly commit to some of the rec construction projects without knowing, it's 100,000, small amounts, but we don't know where we're going on the stuff that is the golf course. And so this is the time to talk about it. Are we going to do these things or not? And I think it was a little over a $4 million budget related to some of those things.
So some of that was already dedicated to the pumps at Gumbo Limbo, I think.
Well, there's a good one too. We're talking
3.2.
about Pumps at Gumbo Limbo.
Yeah, let's talk about that one.
So, and not to put you on the, do you have any idea of what's going on at the Pumps at Gumbo Limbo? Because last time I saw a number of 2.9 million and
I do know it increased to a little over 3 million, but
Right.
that's actually under municipal services. I think Michael can probably answer that better than I can.
okay.
Good evening, Commission. I had a chance to talk with Jennifer Bestiga late last week. The good news is they finally do have the permit in hand. The bad news is they have to wait for a particular time of the year to make sure they can do the entire project, which we've already missed that timeline. So we're gonna do it next year. However, the costs have gone up since last year. So I believe last year was 2.9 million. I think now it's up to 3.2. So because of the cost of steel and other things, there's no doubt the cost went up.
Okay.
What about the improvements at Gumbo Limbo? How's that going to affect the pumps? Because if we put the pumps in and then they do some of the improvements that they want to do, will that be affected?
I specifically asked that question to Jennifer a number of times, and it will not. All the work that you guys are gonna be doing for the pumps will not affect Gumbo Limbo. If everything stays where it is, or if we do the phased approach, which we have worked very closely with Ms. Harms as well as Michelle Peel and the Friends of Gumbo Limbo.
And what does EDSA, have they come to you and given you an opinion about this too? Because, they're very involved with all this,
Any opinion on the pumps?
on the pumps. And what would happen, because they're talking about taking out the tanks possibly, or relocating some things.
I have not specifically asked them about the relocation of the tanks and those things. However, my conversation with Jennifer Bestiga last week was, regardless of what we do over there on the west side of A1A, all the work is going to be on the east side, and it should not impact future development of Gumbo Limbo, either refurbishment or building a whole new phased approach to the Gumbo Limbo.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
So on Gumbo Limbo though, I mean, do we have any understanding on what if the cost goes to 5 million? Is it an expectation that the district pays for it?
Our expectation is that we're going to do the project this coming year, and at least if, from talking with Jennifer, she believes that that 3.2 number is a number that's going to be finished, out the door, finalized project. Now, we stood up here last year and we said it was going to be done by 2.9. So, my hope is that, believe me, I don't want to see your costs go up any more than I want my own costs to go up. So I hope we can get the project done. I hope it comes in at 3.2 or maybe a little bit lower. However, these were the most recent numbers that we got from our consultants.
Understandable. I mean, somehow I think we need to have agreement with the city on those kind of costs. So I think 10% up is reasonable to me. So I can live with 3.2. But this is a good time to talk about it. But what I can't accept is what happened in January related to the tower. So the tower was, in my mind, not managed very well, and what was an 900,000 is instantly a $1.6 million thing. And the expectation is that we're going to write a check for it. Fortunately, there was a workaround, and collectively, I think we worked around it. But I think there needs to be a far deeper understanding that it is not a blank checkbook to do these things. So if someone's going to come to a 10% overrun on their costs, I really personally expect them to be here to explain why they're doing it and what they're doing long before a budgetary meeting. So to me, it'd be very beneficial for Jennifer to be here on a regular basis until her project is complete, because it's $3.2 million and we're the ones who are paying for it. And it would be good communication to say, hey, you're paying for it and it's over. And there's logical reasons why 3.2 to me it's rational, it's reasonable, I'm okay with that. But to come back, a year from now and say it's going to be 4 million, I think no. I'd say that's your problem. You guys went out and did the work and constructed with it. You went and did what, I don't know what you did. You have no idea what you did. So it is a problem for the city that needs to be delivered and communicated. Without communication, what we approve in our budget is capped and done. Then, you know, it's not like it has to be just a city, unless you can show me an interlocal agreement that says we have to pay 110% of everything that is in there. I don't think we should. And we got other things, all of us do going on. And I know the city staff are doing what is right, but it's not.
Jacob, is there anything in our ILA that says that we are responsible for our runs?
Not that I'm aware of, we're in the process of reviewing the ILAs in their totality as it relates to the city, and we'll look at that specifically.
Thank you.
I've had conversations with municipal services a number of times, and I would rather them give us a good estimate than an underestimate. I've also asked them a number of times that I would appreciate it, and I think you guys would as well, as I just heard, for them to come and explain some of these overruns or just where they are with the status of certain projects. I know we've talked a lot about communication. I try to communicate with my leadership of the city as much as I can. I've invited them to come to these meetings. I will continue to do that after hearing your comments. But again, you know, I will always try to bring you the correct information if I have it. I've worked in other departments where we get to manage our own projects, like Mr. Koski has said. I ran a very large department with our own design development team. I don't have that ability here. I have to work with municipal services that basically runs all those projects. And I am sitting at a meeting hearing what's going on, much like you are at one of these meetings. So I'll again invite Mr. DeChristopher and his team to come out to these meetings and give you guys regular updates.
I think it would help when we approve the budget, that's what we need to have, is if there's a variance towards it, why there's a variance, that communication. But I don't know, I'm one commissioner, maybe our other commissioners are comfortable with it. But as far as some of the other projects in here, I'm prepared tonight to go through them one by one and say yes on many of them, maybe on some of them, and flat out no on others until we know more information. Because quite frankly, there's no way we can commit to a budget and say, yes, it's okay to go build a couple of rec buildings when we're trying to build a golf course and we don't know where they're at. But I think in good faith, the city has taken on the Countess of Horley, which is something we said is important. So I think it's very important that we factor all things in.
I'm happy to go through it line by line. I was hoping that Brianna and I could sit down with each one of you guys individually, go through all your individual concerns, talk through every project, and then again, meet with you all as a board. I could have additional team members here, whether it's Greg to talk about maintenance, whether it is Kevin here to talk about if there are concerns over athletics, and we can really go into more detail on that. But I'm here at your leisure.
I think I'm scheduled for this Friday coming up in the morning.
And also, before we go through this line by line, I think it's only fair that Mr. Engel will be able to be here. And since this was an unfortunate time for him, rather than to go through it and then have him come back and say, well, I wasn't able to weigh on it.
I agree. And in fairness to Michael and the team, I'm scheduled for 8:30, I think, on Friday to go through it. I'm sure he can answer many of the questions and defer that. But we as a group, without having any commitment from the city, I think many of the big things that are put out there, we have to just we have to make some tough decisions.
Absolutely.
And that factors into the budget and
we will. I mean, that's another reason why a lot of times in the past when I was first on this board, we would have a meeting every week on the budget. And it was necessary to do that. And if we have to do that, we will schedule special meetings.
And if I can say one more thing, just for the public's benefit, because I know they don't have the budget in front of them. Ms. Harms and my team work very hard, very closely with each other. The budget that we're delivering is a reduction as of now of 8.59%. So we have worked hard to look at those BPD city splits and do what I think was right. Some positions that may have been paid more for the BPD, we moved all the way to the city. We really went back and we looked at those right splits and tried to really true it up. We've also gone through and looked at our staffing levels certain places and tried to shore that up. So I know you all each will have your own comments, but I just want to tell you that on behalf of Jill and my team, we have done what we can to really trim the budget where we feel it's fair to our residents, but not cutting those services which they demand and expect.
Michael, you heard the old saying before, don't shoot the messenger, and that's where you are. So we're, and to Craig's point about the pumps and the piping, I know that's outside of your purview, your oversight there, and you're putting the budget together. So I appreciate the position that puts you in. And I don't know that we intended to get into this depth here this evening without Steve here, but I do have one question that you can answer. The city, as Craig said, is taking on phase 2 of DeHornet. There certainly must have been some discussion about what will be in phase 2, and I'd be curious as to what kind of construction will take place there. Is this going to be pickleball courts, sand volleyball? Are you going to have rectangular fields? What's the kind of the discussion that's taking place on that?
We actually haven't had a lot of discussion on that. I was asked if we would build a number of different things, whether it's everything from a skate park to pickleball to all rectangular fields to synthetic turf to natural turf to sand volleyball to pickleball, what it would be. And I gave the city manager a number which I thought was palatable. We are now, as you guys know, going through a needs assessment. I want to wait and see what that needs assessment shows before we actually determine what we should put there. So it wouldn't surprise me if some of the things you mentioned, including fields as well as potentially pickleball courts, wind up being at phase 2. However, I have not decided, and I don't think my team is either, because we really want to hear from our citizens what they want through this statistically valid survey.
Well, it would be disappointing if you ended up putting over sports turf over there after we've put patch reef under sports turf, and I'll just put that out there for you. The original agreement with the city when we did those things that I mentioned earlier was that there would be grass fields there rather than artificial surface. Now, if you want to have artificial surface for the pickleball players, I don't care. That's all right with me. But for the field sports like lacrosse and football and others, natural grass is certainly the preferred surface. And the way that your guys have maintained Spanish River is exemplary. So I'm not concerned about the wear. You probably have more hours on that field than any other fields in the city, and yet they look in pristine condition. 12 months a year. So be congratulated for that.
Commissioner, that's noted, and like I said a moment ago, I can surmise what will potentially be recommended for that, but again, I want to go through the process. I definitely think we have a need for fields. I think you've heard from a lot of our citizens that play pickleball. There's a number of other sports that I think are rapidly growing. Let's let the process go through, and then all that information will be utilized as far as designing the Hornley phase 2, and we'll talk to you guys about it. We'll be very much into this conversation.
Michael, when is that needs assessment survey coming out?
While I'm up here, let me give you guys just a very quick update. Thank you all for meeting with Nilay Bhatt, our consultant out of Pros Consulting. They're basically the nationwide leader in doing needs assessment throughout the community. They're based out of Indianapolis. They still have a couple more conversations they need to hold, one with the mayor, one with the deputy mayor. We're right in the process now of doing a SWOT analysis. But I think Rayanne's going to do one, as well as my team's going to do one. From that, they will start working on those questions that that they will put on the survey. It's all going to be constructed by ETC, which is the nationwide largest parks and recreation survey company that's out there. They're based out of Colorado. I've used them a number of times. So once they get that's put together, I believe it's going to be released in the next probably, I'm going to say 2 to 3 to 4 months. So we're going along the timeline.
By the time you compile all the information from the needs assessment survey, and because Nilay kind of said that probably this time next year we wouldn't even have an idea.
I don't think it's going to take that long. I believe that he's anticipating that it's going to come out April or May or of next year, but we will have the survey results before then. So the full report may not be completed, but I think we'll have a good idea of those facilities that we need in the community, and those, if we are looking to build a new facility, what would be the best new amenities that we place in that parcel or that facility.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
this is not necessarily for Michael, but, and this is probably the latest that we've gotten our budget packet ever. And the questions that Craig has raised are the kind of things that I like doing in public, since we're such a transparent body, and I know that a lot of folks are interested in what we're doing. I prefer having these discussions, and I would recommend next year, if we're going to do it the same way with little caucuses, that we talk about that ahead of time, because I'm not comfortable with that method of discussing the budget, because I like to hear what Craig and Aaron have to say about some things that I may be on the fence about that might help me decide whether I want to go with that and support that project or not. So from my standpoint, next year I'd like to go back to the old method that we had. Hopefully we'll have this ahead of time, where we had the CIP and we went through and prioritized that, and then we gave the city a number, and that was how they could spend the dollars. But the folks out there in the audience could hear what we were talking about. And so, I mean, that's my preference, rather than, sitting down individually with you and Michael, which I know would be informative, but I'd rather hear what the other commissioners have before I make up my mind or give you the impression that I'll go along with something. So.
I agree with you. Erin, do you have any questions for Michael?
Not really, and there was some little things about. Just for everyone's understanding, who's in the audience, I know you all are well aware. Unfortunately, our city manager's been out of the office for an extended period of time. Even though he's out of the office, he was still working on the budget. I really want to thank you all for your patience. I want to thank Jill. I have been pushing as hard as I can to get this budget in your hands as quickly as I can. I know that's, it doesn't mean a lot, but just thank you all for your patience.
Thank you. Jill, do you have anything else you'd like to?
No, I mean, I'm one-on-one, you can call me and ask any questions that you want.
Thank you. Thank you.
What's your name, Jill?
Commissioners, do you want to put the budget on the July 25th special meeting agenda as well as the August 5th? You're not here on the longer. So it looks like we'll have to speak about it on the 25th to get started. We might have to move the sunshine law.
We are at your
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's go to the approval of payroll and invoices. Mr. Ernst.
I'd like to recommend a motion for payroll invoices of $954,897.66.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, sorry, I haven't received any kind of project management follow-up from Mr. Kosky for the payment that we're paying.
Okay, Mr. Kosky, you said you were working on that the other day.
Full time. We should have been met this morning at 6. We'll include that.
Okay. I will stay on him on that. Anything else? Okay, all in favor of the motion to approve the invoices of $954,897.66, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign.
No.
Vicki, Mrs. Wright is a nay. Mrs. Wright is a nay. Okay, reports and discussions, Brianne, interim executive director.
Sure. I spoke with Susan Saxton. They're getting the agenda together for their workshop next week. It's not out, and there may be a memo as well coming out that she said I would get a copy of. They are adding the golf course discussion to their agenda. They are not asking that anyone specifically be present, but if somebody is there, they will likely be part of the conversation. So let me bring that up here.
I may have a conflict, I will be there, but if I have to go pick up my son, I will. So I'm working that out with Green. Just want to let, so I'm supporting it, okay.
And I intend to attend to it.
Okay, okay. Permitting for the shade coverage at Sugar Sand is kind of been delayed, so right now the project is still on schedule, but they have had some problems with the permitting department. This is the same vendor that did the shade coverage at Red Beef, and all he had to do there was give an aerial shot and show where the shade was going, but now the city, for this project, the city is asking for things that he was not asked for beforehand. So he's trying to get actual architectural drawings for the shade structures together. It's just more than he anticipated having to do for the permitting process because he did not have to do that previously for a city project.
Elsie, if you don't mind, he's got the architectural drawings for the shade structures themselves. It's of the actual site and where it's going that they're wanting the architectural drawings of, which we do not have.
But again, it was not required at his previous job, so he didn't anticipate that in the project schedule when he first submitted it. Patrick is on schedule. Southeast and Southwest fields are scheduled to be done by August 20th still, the Northeast by September 10th, and the total project done by September 20th. Batting cages will be demoed this week. Red Reef walkways will start the second week of August and be completed by the end of the month. That's a city-run project. The city is preparing a resolution for.
Oh, okay.
The city is preparing a resolution for naming rights of the tower for their July meeting for approval. So pending the city council approval of that, then we can move forward with the MOU with Gummalumbo and then we can start fundraising efforts once we know that the city is on board with that naming. And just a reminder that July 20th, 9:30 a.m. You guys need to be here to cut the ribbon.
You don't have to wear your hard hats.
That's it.
Thank you. Wayne, do you have anything for the golf course update?
No.
Okay, thank you. District Council, Mr. Horowitz.
Madam Chair, I have nothing to add. We will see you on the 25th and again on the first meeting in August for sunshine law presentation.
Okay. Yeah, and Erin won't be here in August, so.
I'm sure she's got us.
Oh,
Matt, you're available at your convenience. We'd be happy to coordinate when the full board is available.
thank you. Craig, Commissioner's report.
Couple things. First, taking up on the comment about the video not working here, I'd like to suggest that we get a professional video system put in place, whatever it is. I mean, the GoPro's nice, but it should work professionally so everyone can see it here. So I don't know what needs to be done to do that, but.
Well, we'd like to get software as well that would automatically do closed captioning and everything for it, so we can put some proposals together and get them to you to see. I'm pretty sure it'll be over 5,000, so.
I'm sure it's gonna be a lot more over 5,000. Do it right is what I would suggest, but it needs to be visible for everyone, and I think that's good for the district because then you can see everything that we're working on. It's very transparent.
Well, it also has to be ADA compliant.
Yes. Okay, so Brianne, you're gonna work on that.
Yes.
And then, number two, I did have the opportunity to go through the maintenance facility building. I mentioned my concerns to Brianne, but the number one was that the flooring was not tiled, it was rough concrete. It's a nice office space and environment, but it made no sense. I don't know why it was done that way, but I strongly recommend that we proceed with tiling the floor or some kind of smooth surface floor because you're going to destroy the HVAC system without a proper floor in the building.
So it's concrete?
Yes.
It is rough concrete. So don't know why anyone was done like that, but you can't do that. I mean, that's fundamental. It's going to collect dirt and dust. These are folks walking in and out and stuff. But, and also, quite frankly, I don't understand the layout of it at all, but I think that's Michael Calvert. I'd invite Mickey Gomez back. I'd invite anyone who's involved with this thing to please explain which each room is going to be used for and maximize the usage of it. So, Brianne?
I did walk through with Paul Davidson, he's the superintendent over it, and he is working with staff to program those rooms. So once we have that, I'll get that as well.
Okay, well, I mean, I think to me, it's about the staff being able to use it and that it's really well thought out. And, just walking through with one of the grounds people, it wasn't, and he just doesn't know, but at the end of the day, we designed and built a building that was very expensive, and it really needs to be well thought out and well utilized. And so before we talk about building new buildings, we really need to be focused on the buildings we have. So I encourage us to kind of reassess what's going to go in there, because once you move in, it's going to be moved in. And the second, I go back to some of these other locations to say, what's in these locations and what is it really being utilized for? I'm not a fan of having offices for the sake of offices. It's better for people to be out and about, particularly in recreation. So openness, transparency, windows is very important. So I kind of put it back to you, Brianne, to work with staff to define not only this space, but take a closer look at some of the other spaces.
After we talked, I just to go back to the flooring issue too, because I want to get more. Are you asking us to start getting quotes for the flooring out there?
Absolutely. I mean, the concrete is painted. You should take a walk out there. It's painted gray. But the fact that you have a rough surface, I mean, this is not a barn. This is a building with nice tile ceilings, nice windows, nice everything, and it's got a rough surface floor.
Right, but can't you just seal concrete? Like I've seen houses that have sealed concrete floors, and it makes it just industrial. But can't you just seal?
Normally, it would be better if it was smooth like Costco, and it's not. It is a rough painted floor.
So the direction is to get those quotes and bring them back to you.
Yeah, I would support Greg's motion. That's second.
Are you making a motion?
I make a motion to seek quotes for appropriate flooring to be put into the recreation building.
And Mr. Robbins, you're seconding. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you, Craig.
The last thing I have is that is for Mr. Calvert as we go through the budget, and it's highlighted with the golf course, particularly at Red Reef. A lot of the things that we do and your team does is really in the programming. And I know that your staff is coming, you're developing your staff and it's new, but I would encourage you, many of the things I've heard that are quote needed in the new golf course, I would ask the question, well, why are we not doing it at Red Reef? It's $6 to play out there. There's no one out there on the course. My thought is really beefing up the programming. Just like you have the talent, the skills of the communication, just like we're doing it for the kids programs, can we do more in our facilities that we have to do more programming? And as you do your budget, I know you've done a great job of kind of trimming it, but I'm open to the idea of stronger programming and supporting our volunteers and our youth leagues. As someone who has gone through Sabre and gone through the different things in the Little League, I see tremendous volunteers who've done great things. So I would really encourage to, how do we keep that engagement and where is it in the budget? And does it need a little bit more emphasis to it? I'd be supportive of that, but I don't know what we have already. So
I just reiterate what Craig said. We pitch in $250,000 on that facility every year. Red Reef Golf Course, and I think a junior program that you described there would improve the play there. And I know that Michael's done a great job with programming in various different facilities. And I was pleased to see that in the budget. But I think Red Reef is an area that is dying for attention. It's a beautiful course, and it's fun to play for juniors, and it's the ideal place for a kid to learn to play golf. And if you had a junior golf program, and I know some of the middle schools play golf there, but that's just for a very short season. We need to capture those people and try to get something going there.
Yeah, I've seen some of the players from like Advent and St. Paul out there at the same time we've been out there, and it's just heartwarming to see all these kids. Michael, you want to?
I would tell you we had the same conversation late last week. I was talking with Paul, as well as Greg Rollin, our golf course administrator. So I told him that's something I would be looking for, as well as you all. So these things don't happen overnight, but I know it's something that's on their programming list to work on next few months.
coupled with your needs assessments, as you see quick hits that you need, that are a great opportunity, I'd say let's not wait until the final thing is done and it takes a long time to do it, but let's support those things. So that's fine. I appreciate you looking into it.
Well, I will tell you that we have started doing new programs. Sitting to my right is Amy Blackman, who used to be the deputy director of Boynton Beach. She's a fantastic programmer. She's working very closely with our team members in all three community centers, as well as this center. And then just starting today, we had Michelle Silver, who you all haven't had the chance to meet yet. She's a former director out of Chicago that just joined our team, who's going to be working out of Sugar Sand Park and Recreation Center there. So we are bringing people on that are more programmers, and I would say less task-centered individuals. I think we have a number of those. So we are looking to add more programs into our community.
Programming and music is what I'm telling you. I know from my just concept, and I learned from my daughter, Meadows has music, this one does not, you know, and you get a different environment involved. So the more you can put music in different areas, however you do it, please consider it. And it's something that, you know, I would certainly support, but let's just keep an open mind on the programming that we should do more with what we already have.
Thank you. Aaron? Bob?
Yeah, one thing I know that we have never talked about, and I don't think it's ever been considered, but would probably have solved some of the communication problems that we've got with the community, perhaps, and with you know, the city, is having somebody do our public relations. We've never really looked into that, and I can't tell you how important I think that is now that you know, we have our arms around so many different projects. Letting the community know in a professional way what we're doing and who we are and where we are, I think is important. And I'd like to suggest to the commission that we look for, maybe draw up an RFP to, because I don't think this is something that would be inexpensive. I have no idea what it would cost annually, but I wouldn't have any problem in throwing you know, a significant number at it. So that, because for years, and you can still, like was referred to earlier, the Parks and Rec Board, and there's very little, up until recently, in the last recent years, people didn't distinguish between the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Parks District from the city. And that's not a bad thing, but I think that because our name's on the building, and because our tax bill shows who we are, it's a good thing to tell people what we're doing with their money. And the city puts out a nice little flyer on the taxes every year. And I think that I'd like to suggest that we, you know, consider putting together an RFP and seeing what it would cost us to put something like that together.
Is that a motion?
Yes, that would be a motion.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Discussion.
I think it's a good idea. One thing I do think we should do before we do that is to get a retirement plan though for our staff. I think that's something that's important.
How about we do both of those things?
We could do both. Yeah.
Well, since the motion is up for the public relations firm and an RFP, we need to vote on that first, and then you can make the motion for the retirement plan.
So on the discussion for the communication, I fully support it. However, the one thing in the discussion with the needs assessment folks that stood out in my mind is the website. And the website, you know, one of the recommendations was there are two websites, and most residents don't understand that. So whatever we do, I really hope that we can have a coordinated website that is one name that I think that will be one of the outcome recommendations, should be working towards it. But there's a second part of it of communicating what's going on in the parks and supporting the programming that is greater than just the city itself. So it needs to be carefully done in coordination so it's not in conflict with the city, but we are a different entity, and I do support the idea of any communication is better than no communication. So
Is that something possibly that you have a webmaster that be incorporated in public relations? Because, it seemed to me that would go hand in glove, Greg, and that would be something that should be included in that if we could find somebody that does both.
But my point though is I'm cautious of us doing everything because programming, we want the program to continue with the city. So if you're having whether it's a mommy and me program or lacrosse or anything, there has to be that one go-to place. So we don't want to conflict with it. We can also, what you're saying is who is the district and how do we bring people to the parks? There's got to be a purpose for that communication. And it doesn't, the point is yes, we need to go forward with that level of communication, but it needs to be carefully thought out with the city so we're not stepping in as
A virtual recreator.
Yeah, we have a recreator and maybe there's,
But a virtual one.
yeah, a virtual one, but the recreator's got to move to another concept. I mean, it's nice, but it's.
I think some coordination would be important.
Yep.
And whether the coordination, how it looks, I don't have a vision for that, but I wouldn't want to confuse people by presenting our activities versus their activities, because it's our activities is managed by the city. I'm thinking in terms of a more higher level of basis as to what we're doing, what's going on. I mean, we could certainly do that without stepping on the city's toes and their production, but I just think we need to have somebody that's representing our interests. When we're talking about the golf course,
Yes.
it would have been helpful to have had somebody putting out some really nice shiny sheets about what we're doing.
Well, there is no question that other members, one of the things, the city does have a staff to support and write different things. And so you don't get magically a councilman showing up on the golf course with nothing. There was a whole plan of how it got there. And so we're currently not participating in that program. So your PR person will be the one to facilitate educating the community from the district's perspective. And I think that would be valuable, right? So going back though, yes, I support the motion right now. Do we have to call it to a vote or we done?
We haven't called the vote yet, we just had discussion.
Okay.
Second. But we haven't second, but we just need to vote now. Okay, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes, Vicky.
Susie, should we make a motion for an RFP for the video stuff now, or you want to wait for that?
We can
Might as
get
well.
started. Let's.
I'd like to make a motion that we let the staff look into a video program for ADA compliance necessary going forward.
Do I hear a second? Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Okay, motion passes, Vicky. Now, what about the retirement plan? Do I hear a motion about staff?
Make a motion to finally look into a retirement plan for our staff.
So we'll need an RFP for that.
Yes,
Second.
RFP or retirement plan.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes, Vicky. Okay, good. Anything else, Bob?
Nope, I'm good.
I've got a couple of things. I want to wish Brianna a belated happy birthday. She had a big round one. Okay, it's just 30, yeah. And an official condolence to the Engel family. If all of you didn't gather that Steve's mom's passed away, so we will be doing something for them and on an important basis as well as individually. Michael, speaking of programming, my husband's driving all the way to Weston to play tennis because there's no men's night anymore on Monday night. Is there some way we can get your staff invigorated to because they used to turn people away. Now they can't get enough people to play. So if you could look into that for us, I'd appreciate it. Keep my husband closer to home. And also the testing of the pool water, I've been reading about public pools having issues. So how do we do that?
I know I just recently had a conversation with Paul, and they're gonna change some of the ways that they're doing the coordination of the pools here. I don't know all the specifics, but he is addressing it.
Good, okay. Then I have nothing else. And we've got our future agenda items. Would you like to? Yeah, there's a lot. Okay. Bring your jammies next time. Okay. Go ahead.
For the Gumbel the Friends of Gumbel wants to make a presentation. We can look at the August meetings for that. As far as the 25th, right now, we have our proposed millage rate, budget discussion. And thank you, Mark. Thank you.
And then in August, we'll do after Aaron gets back, we'll do the sunshine law. So that will be the second one in August. Okay. Anything else? Just so that we don't run into the same situation, we could open up public requests if anybody is interested in speaking. I see Mr. Zaccaro has left, so. Yes, ma'am, you should step to the microphone, please.
Jerry Lynn Schultz, 5291 Northwest Third Terrace, Boca. I'm just wondering, you made a statement about taking away the tunnel at Northwest Second Ave.
Temporarily, until we see what our budget is and what's going on. It's been recommended that we take it away until we can fit it into our budget. Plus, we've also heard that it's going to snag traffic for an extended period of time. Personally, I would like to see a tunnel up for the safety of the golfers.
Yeah, somebody needs to stand out there. I live there. I live in Tika Woods. I've lived there for 25 years. And somebody needs to stand on that corner between 8 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock at night.
I've tried to cross it in a golf cart. It was a nightmare.
Yeah, it is. And somebody's going to get hurt. It really needs to be done. So.
Well, thank you for stepping up. Appreciate it. Okay, now the public request is closed once more. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.